Welcome to Marketing Momentum with Stonehill Media, the podcast where we explore the strategies, stories, and successes of business leaders making waves in their industries. I'm Janeil Lentz, and today we're diving into the world of wellness with Jessie Puryear, the owner of Urban Float in University Place, Washington. For over 6 years, Jessie's been helping people escape the chaos of everyday life through flotation therapy, offering a sanctuary for pain management, stress relief, and recovery. Jessie, welcome. Yeah, thank you for coming out and taking the time to do this. Could you please briefly introduce yourself and a little bit about Urban Float?
Yeah, Jessie Puryear. I'm retired Navy, U.S. Navy, did a career 22 years. Kind of discovered floating towards the end of my career there, and just thought, wow, this is a great tool that really needs to be utilized, especially folks in the military. Um, and so I went down the path of, you know, trying out different locations. There weren't a ton around where I live, so I also thought, okay, maybe there's an opportunity there. And the other thing is that uh, you know, we really had to overcome the educating the public and getting them aware of what floating is and how it benefits them. So, uh, my current role is, I own this location. It's a franchise, um, but we do have a lot of freedom to kind of work within our space to add on different holistic modalities, which we've done over the years, and we can talk about that. And yeah, so my role now is just I'm kind of I try to maintain that kind of 10,000 foot view. I have managers in the store and employees that are running the day-to-day operations, and it really allows me to focus on the big picture of the business and focusing on what are the trends in the industry and different marketing things that we want to do to try to be successful.
That's fantastic. And you'd mentioned that you're focused kind of on the other veterans in the community. Is there anyone else that's in your target market?
We're really our target is people that are looking to do holistic wellness. We get a lot of clients, coming for the mental health benefits of floating, and they've been recommended by their therapists, and they don't want to do the pharmaceutical route anymore. So they're looking for alternatives. We get people that get referred to us by their chiropractors or their physical therapists, uh, and then we also have a great deal of professionals in the field that come use us for their own self care. So I have quite a few mental health professionals that come float on a regular basis just for their own self care. I have a couple chiropractors that come float. So it really appeals a broad base of people. Um, and it just really depends. We try to fit in to find something that can help you naturally, holistically, that's going to make your life better without any kind of side effects.
Perfect. And float is relatively new. At least I only know one locally in my area. Can you maybe describe for people what that process is like when they come into your studio? Like how does that process work? What does it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you show up, we always ask you to show up a little bit early. We want to really kind of get to know our clients because there's so many different benefits to floating. We really want to kind of be able to identify what your pain point is, what you're looking to get out of it, and we really tailor the experience to that um, benefit. So if you're looking for the mental health benefits, we're going to talk to you about that and uh, teaches some different breathing techniques and affirmations to use. If you're looking for the physical recovery, if you have, you know, back issues, I have a lot of clients that have had like hip replacements, knee replacements, all kinds of different, physical skeletal issues. We're going to talk about, relaxing the body and letting the muscles go and how typically, someone with chronic pain compensates for it the way they carry their body. But in a float tank, there's no gravity, there's nothing to push off. So being aware of that, so you're not trying to hold your body in a certain position. So these are all, getting to know the client. Then we'll go in the room, we'll do an orientation, we'll talk about how the room works, the lighting, how the pods work, kind of the expectation for them in the tank, how to get them to settle in mentally, physically, and then turn it over to them, and then they have the room for the next, hour and a half to work out their issues.
Oh, that's such a great process. It's nice that that you're in it to help the client and to really tailor that experience for them and to walk them through it. Because I know for myself, I've heard of Float. I've never actually gone and done it, and so just demystifying that process is great to just make everybody feel comfortable.
Absolutely. And it's a funny, like the number of people that think we're going to like lock them in the tank or that they're going to have, they're going to be claustrophobic. And so it's really kind of getting them comfortable because it's really hard to relax if you're nervous or you're uptight or you're anxious. So we try to demystify any kind of preconceived notions they have. And that's all part of our orientation and getting to know them during those first few minutes when they're in the store.
Mhm. I'd love to switch gears and talk about the business itself. Are you comfortable talking through maybe some of the biggest business challenges you've had, like, are going through currently?
Absolutely. Right now, I think our biggest challenge is, and we started experiencing this the third quarter of 24, was we started to notice a drop off in new client foot traffic. So coming out of the pandemic, we really saw a huge surge in utilization, people making appointments. Um, we don't know for sure, but we kind of feel that a lot of that was due to one, people weren't traveling, so they were staying local and doing things local. So that benefited us. Two, people had lots of time during lockdown to spend time on the internet and research different things and may have come across what we do and wanted to experience it. So we really saw a huge surge in business and revenue in 21, 22, 23, and the first half of 24. And then second half 24, obviously United States, we had an election coming. There was a lot of uncertainty, inflation. And so we saw that kind of take a hit on the new client foot traffic. We are, any kind of wellness business is a disposable income business. So it's not like food and gas and shelter. It's something you spend money on that you don't need to, but is beneficial if for you, if you can, if you have the means to do it. So it's, uh, that's the biggest challenge right now. And we know from a business standpoint that only about a certain percentage of people that come in are going to become members. We're a membership-based business. That's how we continue to keep the doors open, provide our services, is have people, on that reoccurring monthly revenue basis. And so we know we need to bring in a certain amount of foot traffic every month to maintain that level where we're generating the revenue we need to keep the doors open. So that's our biggest challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, how are you addressing that challenge?
We continually reevaluate our marketing, and the Facebook and Instagram and Google, they're always adjusting the algorithms. So that's one of the biggest things we have to adjust to and figure out how do we stay in front of our audience, um, and make sure that we're presenting ads and our information to people that are, one, geographically close to us.
Mhm.
It doesn't make sense to, I'm in Washington to provide ads to people in Alberta, because obviously they're not going to come visit. So that's a waste of money. So making sure our ads are tailored to the right location, we're hitting the right uh, group of people that would utilize our services, that are into that natural, holistic health, wellness, and have searched for those things. Um, and then what was the question again? I think I,
Oh, yeah, I think you've touched on all of it. One of the things that I find is specifically when you have that brick and mortar location that you need to drive your customers to is really focusing on your Google My Business and your position in the map pack and just really making sure that you're optimizing that profile and that you're really reaching out and getting reviews because reviews are going to make the difference really heavily in that map pack and where you show because if people are looking for you and they're looking for you in that space and they can see that you're in the top piece, they're more likely to visit your website and they're more likely to walk through your door. So it's a great opportunity just to really focus in on local SEO, specifically in that brick and mortar. You need to drive people through through that front door.
Yeah, and what we found with SEO is that people have to be searching for you to find you. So being in a very niche kind of industry, most of our traffic comes through kind of one of making people aware we exist. Through our Facebook ads and stuff like that. We run ads in movie theaters. Um, and then if we can get them to search for us or search, for our type of business, then we can get into that SEO route. And that's where our main focus is from a marketing standpoint. We do the SEO optimization. We're continually doing stuff on the website and keeping it fresh so Google says stuff, and we post stuff on our Google My Business page so Google says, oh, this is still a business that's active and current. I think that's the biggest thing is people set up a Google My Business and then they forget about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then
it's
Google
not
says,
set it
oh,
and forget it.
yeah, you're not doing anything. So obviously you're not really doing any business. But if you're in there and you're active in it, then that's part of the algorithm knowing, okay, this is an active business. They're updating the website, pages are being updated, changed. And so now you get presented more often in searches.
Absolutely. Do you have any growth goals for the next 12 months?
Yeah, well, the goal is always to grow. But the way to get there, the path is not always clear. So we're really focused now on getting that new client foot traffic back up. The last few years, we would average, 150, 200 new clients a month. Third quarter, we saw that drop down to around 100 or less a month. And so really focusing on getting our marketing back up where we're generating that foot traffic again to maintain. So that's really the goal. The growth goal right now is getting those numbers back up. And I think those are all going to play out depending on the economy. Because like I said, we are a disposable income business. So, and then getting our stuff in front of the people that have the disposable income they're going to use it.
Absolutely. We've talked a little bit about, SEO and making sure that you're constantly in the meta ad space. Is there any marketing or sales strategies that you found that have worked the best for you so far?
I think a lot of it is one, we know how much we got to spend on ads. I think a lot of people start running Facebook ads or they boost posts. I'm not a believer in boosting posts. We haven't had a lot of success with that in the past. So I would say don't waste your money there. And we've also found that with ads, there's really kind of for us a magic number, which we get the right number of impressions that we're going to get the right amount of foot traffic. So then the other option is if you're running ads, but you're only running like maybe a couple $100, you're probably not going to get a lot of traffic because you're just not going to get a lot of people seeing you. So we found for us that magic number is around $1,500 a month. That gets us 100,000 plus impressions in our area. And my goal is if I can get 1% or 0.5% to make an appointment, then we're going to be okay. So always kind of adjusting your ad spend to get the foot traffic you need. So if you're not getting the foot traffic you need, if you're a brick and mortar and you're not getting that foot traffic, then just keep kind of increasing your ad spend, looking at your ads. How are they performing? What's the click-through rate? What are how far can you track them through your funnel to your booking engine? Where are they falling off? And so kind of really looking at those numbers and then just kind of keep adjusting to get where you want.
You've actually touched on two fallacies in the digital marketing space that are a consistent thing. One, the boosting posts. There's a huge difference between a boosted post and an ad, and typically that's targeting and buyer intent. So if you're just boosting that post, you're getting more eyeballs. You absolutely are. But those eyeballs aren't necessarily the ones you want. So it's always best if that creative is doing really, really well organically, instead of boosting that post, use that creative, develop an ad from that creative, and put that out as a proper ad with proper targeting. And there's lots of ways that you can do that. And there's lots of really good resources online, specifically in the meta space, that you can access to understand what those differences are. The second piece that you brought up is that larger reach and making sure that you understand how those numbers flow in for your business. Because you do need to make sure that you, after you've done your targeting, after you've reviewed your creative, after you've done your A/B testing, you've got to get that out to enough people. Because the fallacy in thinking is, if I spend $100, I'm going to get, you know, 25, 50% of people clicking on that ad and coming into my business. And that's just not true. Marketing percentages on returns, if you can get up, between 1% and 3%, you are doing really, really good. And I think that's a hard piece to grasp, because those are numbers that are hangovers from direct mail days or from newspaper ads, magazine ads. So it's about just making sure that you understand and being mindful to your budget. Maybe not every business can spend $1,500 a month, and that's completely fine, but just make sure that you are spending enough that you get that return. And there is this horrible little area in the bottom realm in terms of ad budget that just doesn't deliver, and you're just throwing it away.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the key part. I think understanding that if I'm spending this amount of money and I'm not getting anything, it's not to walk away and say, oh, it's not working. It's no, I need to add a little bit more. I need to add a little bit more. And really look at those numbers. Are your ads getting presented in your area to people that could make a decision to purchase? And are they clicking through? If they're not engaging with your ads, then you really got to think, okay, this ad is not getting them to a point where they want to learn more. So look at your copy, look at your creative, make the adjustments. And I think that the Meta and those guys, they really make it hard too, because the algorithm is continually changing. And so you may get something that hits really well and does really well, and then over time it just kind of fades away. And so you got to keep on your toes and keep adjusting. For a long time it was static pictures, and then it went to video, short form video, and then it's user generated content. And so there's always stuff changing, and you have to be able to change with it and be aware.
And in the meta space, you will find more so than the Google space, that your creative has a life cycle, and it'll do really, really well, and then it will drop off over time, regardless of how great the creative is, how amazing the video is, even how good the offer or promotion is. You are just naturally going to see a decline. So you have to kind of build that into your cycle of your ads planning, just to make sure that, and you will know after a certain period of time, you will know that that ad is going to do really great for a week, and then it's going to drop off. And now you need to refresh it, and it's going to do well for a week, and it's going to drop off. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily something that's built in. I don't want to be cynical and put on my tinfoil hat and say, this is Meta just trying to make more money. But it's just the nature of how it works. So you need to be prepared that if you have a really great offer, a really great promo, make a bunch of different pieces of content that go around that promo. And again, like you said, a mix of images and videos and carousels, and put a bunch of those out there, and see what resonates with your audience and what drives. And again, you mentioned the funnel, like get your pixel, get tracking, find out what's working and what's not, because there is a certain part between sales and marketing that you're going to have that gray area where you're not quite sure when it switches over, and you're relying on very much a manual ask of a customer coming through the door. But there is a lot that you can track. So those are some really, really great pieces.
Well, and a lot of times too, like they'll present your ad and maybe the person didn't do anything. You got to have retargeting ads, so that if they did click, but maybe they didn't make a purchase, then it's going to present them a little bit of a different ad. Because a lot of times it takes 2 or 3 touches on a person before they make a decision to make a purchase. So it's
Yeah.
not just, oh, if they see it once, they're going to come by. It may take 2 or 3 times of you showing up in their feed, in their scroll, before they go, okay, or we present something, they go, oh, let me check that out. And so just being aware that there are multiple steps to that. And I always recommend to folks too, unless you're an expert, don't try to do it all yourself. Like, go to someone who just does digital marketing. Find someone you like. Find someone that works or understands your industry. That was always a hard thing for us. Is we tried different marketing firms and groups and people, but if they didn't really understand our business, it made it really hard for them to market it properly. So when you're interviewing people to help you with your marketing, ask them those serious questions about, have they worked with your kind of industry before? What's their experience with your industry? Have them show you some ads they've created before, you know, because that makes all the difference in the world too, because you can create bad ads and just throw money hand over fist out there and get no response. So a lot of it is in creating that engaging you know, uh, information and then targeting properly.
Exactly. And a lot of reputable agencies will have case studies. They will have clients that you can reach out to. So if a business is looking to bring on an agency, if that agency isn't showing you proof, or they're not saying, hey, I've worked with this client and I've helped their business and that client's willing to talk to you about my service, I would be a little skeptical. And again, yeah, ask to see their creative, ask to see what they've done, because even they might be very reputable, but maybe their style doesn't fit with your brand, or make sure that you're really comfortable in that relationship and you have that great rapport so that you can ask, because there is that buildup when even if someone is really experienced in your niche, you know, you still have to build that relationship and build up that testing phase and work together, and really a successful client agency relationship is more of a partnership versus I buy an ad from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I'd like to move into talking just about growth opportunities. And like, I know they said you're looking at just bringing up those numbers and bouncing back from a softer Q4. Outside of that, is there any other business problem that you're solving right now?
The other problem we always deal with is employee retention.
Hmm.
Um, a business in this space, you're not hiring professionals, you're not hiring people that have technical backgrounds, you're hiring from the retail space. And so, depending on where you are in the country, or whatever country you're in, you may be competing with other businesses for your work staff, your workforce. And so that can play a role in the quality of applicants you get, the quality of employees you get. And if you're competing with, kind of lower retail type industries, there's lots of opportunities. So, uh, a lot of times you can deal with people just go, I don't want to go to work today, I quit. And then now you're trying to find someone, and, because they know there's another job just down the street. I mean, so that's probably one of the biggest problems. We always try and evaluate, how do we retain our employees longer? How do we keep them happy and engaged and motivated? So I think that's a huge issue that in the retail space that all of us deal with, whether you're a Walmart or a McDonald's or a Whole Foods, or any a Target, or Massage Envy, or any of that kind of that retail space. That's one of the things you're always trying to deal with.
And especially when, because you discussed the process when people come through the door and there's that building that rapport and getting them comfortable with the situation. So you really want to make sure that your staff really cares about the client in the same way that you do, so that when they're coming through, that client feels that, because we all know, we've all been to that restaurant and the server, you can tell that they don't care that they're there, and it just really puts a cloud over that business. Do you have a piece of advice for recruiting people, for retention?
I try to do multiple interviews. One, I try to do my first interview, I try to do a phone interview, because I want to hear how you speak, your language. Are you using, proper English? Are you using lots of slang? Are you how do you come across? Can you communicate clearly? Are you yes, no answers to my questions? Do you elaborate on your questions? So that's the first one. And then the second one, I'll do an in-person interview and again, see how they present themselves. How do they show up for the interview? Do they show up for the interview? I can't tell you how many times I've gone to the second interview, scheduled the interview, they're waiting and no one shows up. And when you reach out to them, are you coming? They're gone. So, because they're going to do that to your business too. You're going to, and if you're a small business like us where we have 5 employees, if someone doesn't show up, then someone's got to come in and fill in that shift. And so that's always a pain point for us. And trying to find people that are, take their job seriously, take showing up seriously, take, doing a good job seriously.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever enlisted the help of like an HR consulting or recruiting firm at all?
Not specifically because we just don't do that much. It's onesie twosies here and there that we don't have the throughput, or the bandwidth that it makes sense to engage someone like that. Just from a cost standpoint, like it's got to provide some value for us, in the short term. So it hasn't been something that, and I talk to lots of small business owners too, and, I'm not unique in my situation. So, we all kind of try to figure out what's the best process. And, I've really switched to where now I don't hire a lot of millennials. I don't hire people in their early 20s just because we have been burned so many times where people just disappear on us. They ghost us, they're scheduled to work and then they just don't show up, or they work for 2 weeks and they get a paycheck and then they disappear. And so for a small business, that's a huge cost, right? You've manned your store, you put extra people there to do training, so you have that cost. You're not really getting a return because they're not really dealing with clients or anything. And so we have found that specific age group just doesn't have the work ethic that we want to bring in. So we're typically hiring people later 20s, early 30s, and we've found a lot better success with that group, and even people under their 40s.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And it's a sad situation that because I'm sure within every age, like you're not painting that broad brush across that entire age group. I'm sure that there are good ones in there, but it's really hard for a business to just have that level of churn, like you said, because they're not revenue generating for you at that point, just because of the high cost that it takes for recruiting somebody and getting them trained. Then yeah, there's still a few months of work that you need to get out of them to really get that cost back. So I'm kind of running to the end of time. I was just wondering if there's any other types of support that is really helpful when you're starting a small business.
I would say the biggest thing you can do is outsource as much as you can. If you can hire a bookkeeper, if you can hire a marketer, anything that you can take off your plate that takes you away from focusing on the business itself, and it gives you time to focus on growing it. Now, obviously, every business is going to be a little bit different, but if it's something like this where you want to be kind of customer facing initially and kind of get a feel for and get feedback from your clients, what's working, what's not working, visually see it, or if when you're dealing with clients, what's working as far as from a sales standpoint, what's not working, and then adjusting on the fly until you kind of get it dialed in. So I'd say that's the biggest thing. Outsource as much as you can initially to professionals, and then stay engaged with them. And usually when you're starting up, those costs aren't huge. You can hire a bookkeeper for $300-400 a month, maybe less, depending where you are. How many hours of your time would it take you to sit down and do bookkeeping, right? And are you doing it right? So, you got to figure what's that worth to me, in my business. Marketing could be a huge time issue, right? And take tons of time between generating the creative and creating the ads and setting everything up and then tracking it and following it. And, you know, if you can find someone to do that for you, it's going to get you up and going faster. And so you're generating revenue faster. So those are the big things I would definitely recommend to people when you're starting up. Plan for that, budget for it as much as possible.
That's a fantastic piece of advice, and I often am guilty of not following it. Where I feel like I want to maintain control over things, and I know it in my own business journey that when I get into that mind frame, I become the bottleneck and I become what's preventing my business from growing. So it's a really fantastic piece of advice. Jessie, thank you so much for your time. I wish you all the best with Urban Float. And
Thanks,
everyone, we're going to put all of the information so that if you happen to be in his area, you can stop by, you can take a float, come check them out. Again, Jessie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Janeil. Have a great day.